This story contains fantasy violence. And worms do not destroy. Part 1. The Thief.
He could hear the waterfall in full power. Hear, but could not see. He could imagine the house with imposing walls, just as he had built it, tall and set apart from the forest. Imagine, but could not see. He could recall with some effort the thick slate walkway properly aligned to glorify the benevolent Sephiroth. Recall, but could not see. Now the walkway no longer connected his home to the King's Road, for time had administered its relentless beatings, and the liver-brown slates had all but vanished. The road itself diminished this far south, becoming an irregular deer trail, now only used for running, and his house had toppled. The once fine building, raised with his very hands, was now only piles of stone and splinters of wood, rubble gathered upon a small hill of earth. Atop that hill grew a gnarled tree. The tree arose for no discernible reason, unless it was simply to spite the home that had once been beneath it. He looked askance at the tree's exposed roots, snarling at the knotty holes from which crawled handfuls of filthy worms. He pulled a thick, begrimed white blanket of fur off his shoulder. He covered the wriggling mass. The old man made his way behind the hill and found the waterfall, now but a trickle. Its drizzle emptied into a diseased and darkened sump. He listened to that meager yield, standing in his shorn rags. He twirled a finger carelessly through his thatched beard, then brushed that wild growth aside so he could find his belt buckle. He hooked a thumb behind the bronze likeness of a powerful elk. The elderly warrior relaxed his posture. His once sharp mind was now dulled by past conflict. His thoughts had rusted. He found no clear memory reflected in the dirty water. Only a tease of yesteryear bubbled in the emulsion. He cleaned the grit from the crook of his nose.
Used to be someone playing in that pool. A young boy?
He narrowed his eyes. The creases under them doubled.
Used to be a pool.
Then he laughed, and his knees wobbled under the unexpected strain. An aged gait carried the erstwhile adventurer over to the sump. His hips and shoulders teetered side to side as he shuffled. At the edge of the cesspool, he watched the black ink swirl near yellow lichen. That thin strip of life was ready to surrender. His stomach grumbled. The old man was hungry. He tried to remember. "Didn't bring no rabbit," said Yof, one head taller than his older brother. "Then what did you bring?" asked Wedit, scratching his bare chin. "Not much," joked Yof. "I ate plenty more than that." Wedit laughed. The brothers headed north, taking big strides onto the King's Road, leaving Wedit's wife and child behind them at the edge of the forest. Mother and son waved half-heartedly as the dappled shadows thickened over their worried brows. Yof clarified, "I figured we'd hunt tonight, someplace after the sunset, leave what little is left in this poisoned land to Gwyn and your little one." Wedit snatched a fruit off a nearby tree. He bit it in half. A worm poked out. "The generous Yof," Wedit grinned. "I say we take as we need." He threw the fruit away. "The selfish Wedit," Yof countered. "Faugh! And what of Cousin Uring? What did you leave him? Anything more than a kind word?" Wedit grumbled. "Can't fill a belly with that. Don't stop hunger that way." "Depends on the words," offered Yof. "And depends on the hunger. Some words feed hope, don't they?" "Faugh!" cried Wedit. "When we get back," started Yof. "Get back?" Wedit interrupted. He slapped his brother on the shoulder. "We ain't getting back." "Run!" Wedit shouted. Yof grimaced, already tired and disoriented. The double-headed Gwilsey barked at their heels. Claws and fangs tore at the air. The brothers tumbled headlong through the gray-green forest. The twisted branches of the misshapen trees hooked around them in menace as they neared the end of the dusky wood. The brothers fled one peril after another throughout the long night, and now, unsure if the King's Road was to their east or to their west, Yof worried they would end up in some foreign kingdom, far from their purpose. The loud crashing beasts pursued the brothers through the trees. The sun rose. By the time Yof shook loose his darker thoughts, he discovered he lagged far behind. He struggled to catch up. He shouted at his brother's back, "You're naught but a nail in my eye." Wedit laughed and ran faster, tripping over a felled tree into a clearing. A Gwilsey paw tore at Yof's left side, cutting him open. He cried, leaping out of the forest. The double-headed Gwilsey leading the pack tumbled out from the protection of the trees, disappearing in a green flame as its body burned and evaporated into thin air. The other Gwilsey dared not exit the forest. They stalked at the threshold, barking and clamoring over one another in their lust for human flesh. Oh! When Wedit heard Yof stumble behind him, he swung his gleaming axe up high, hoping to antagonize his brother. Yof ducked, and the heavy weapon passed over him, but only by the width of a hawk's claw. "Settle there, berserker," cried Yof. "One day you'll cleave some fool you don't mean to." The brother stopped, hands on knees, panting. "Ha!" said Wedit. "The blade does not know the fool from the wise. It only knows the cutting." He stood up, seeing Yof's blood. He set his axe across his shoulder and cracked the knuckles of his right hand. He picked up a stone at his feet and tossed it at the nearest double-headed beast. The stone passed through the forest apparition, and the Gwilsey's baleful breath stained the shadows. "What happened? One got you?" Yof looked up at Wedit as his brother approached. "Yes, but it should not be. I did the ritual, and I did it proper, yet I am wounded. You did nothing. You are whole." Wedit shrugged. "It was your piety what called the forest spirits to you. They smelled it." "Gah," said Yof, shoving his brother away. "They say such wounds last a lifetime. We should—" "It is mine to bear," Yof interrupted. "You said before, after our task, you would not go back." Yof winced and tied his tunic tight. "Why?" "Simple. I will leave wife and child, as our king will ask of me. I will not betray my trust in our Lord." "He would never," said Yof, astonished. "He will," Wedit assured him, "and I will not shirk my duty." Wedit tucked his chin and glowered to display the depth of his conviction. "His will is first before all others, even my own." "And why would the Blessed Immortal King ask this of you, you a mere cub?" Yof grinned, but quickly grimaced in a short burst of pain. "For these 3 pillars." Wedit kissed each of his biceps. Then he hefted the axe with 2 hands and aimed it at the morning sun. He kissed the wide cutting edge of the blade. "The king, he will know, yes, the very moment he sees them. These pillars will best honor him in battle, not on some... He trailed off. Wedit heard the anxious Gwilsey clawing at the edge of daylight. Their renewed barking annoyed him. Wedit lowered his axe. Yof tightened his studded belt and stood to his full height again. He said, "There is also honor on our farm." He shook Wedit gently. "Honor and glory sleep in separate beds," came Wedit's quick reply. He turned to the southern edge of the clearing behind them. He watched the orange haze suffocate the distant Newell mountain range and the Cooey Mountains far beyond those. Then his eyes retreated over the treetops out of reach, down along the gray-green grasses beneath them, and rolled unevenly to rest at the toes of his bare feet. "Have we already lost the king's road?" he asked. Wedit flumped the head of his axe on the ground to punctuate his concern. "Only for the moment, brother. It can't be far," Yof promised. He playfully scratched his brother's short beard. Wedit sneered, not amused. The closest Gwilsey bared its fangs. "You would truly abandon wife and son?" asked Yof. He lowered his eyes to the ground. Wedit turned his sneer away from the ghostly clamor, and it became a smile when he faced his brother. "My precious Gwyn has known since the day of our vow-giving, the very day. She has known I have long dreamt of splitting skulls, not tree trunks." He hoisted his axe with one hand. "No, they will know me in the west." Wedit spoke with new confidence. "There they will fear me, for I will bring the king's ire. Yes, brother, our king will call me to war when I stand before him. And you will live to see my glory." He smiled. But Yof shook his head, disappointed. "The king, blessed and immortal, will not look kindly on you chafing with envy for great deeds. Glory grows tall and overshadows the most pure of hearts. I've seen this. The ideals that first spurred you will be choked of sunlight. Your own pride one day will take the throne, and your precious glory will lift its hands up, and crown it king." Yof continued to chastise his brother, saying, "No, brother, our bounty will come, but only when we shape our home and our hearts as proper stewards of his road. There lies his faith, and ours." Wedit spat in Yof's face. "I care not for your meek words, such bland gruel. Yes, a vomit, and like vomit your body is now disgorging what ails you. Yof, turn aside from this sickness, this influence which asks you to lift up what is feeble. You ask me to tend the furrows of withering crops, and to watch over the shards of a road underfoot? Those days will not be mine. No, the king will see me and know my greater worth, and yours too. In the west strikes Ash-Tooth, does he not?" That great ember worm and his heathen worshippers, those who burn their own flesh in foul and rank ritual. The west holds my fate. I will put a swift end to that vile rot, killing those savage disciples. Then, my wrath unsatiated, I shall bend low and stomp the very maggots that writhe from their corpses. Yof offered no retort, but trembled. He dropped his playful smile. He slouched, he sighed. He forced his voice low. "We go to the king for different purposes, brother." Wedit watched Yof carefully, then whispered, "I know." Yof caught his foot on an old log and tripped backwards. His right shoulder and arm landed in the shadows of the trees. 3 Gwilsey rushed to his exposed skin. Their jaws and teeth became material so they could tear at their prey. Wedit intervened, and in 3 swings he robbed the spirit scrum of its morsel. Yet the Gwilsey fangs remained physical, and they embedded in the soil, even as their crushed mandibles turned to vapor. Wedit's 3rd strike buried so deep that when he rescued his axe from the earth, clumps of worms fell from the metal, seeding among the Gwilsey fangs. What crop would grow there, they would never know. Wedit helped Yof to his feet. "Thank you," said Yof, brushing dead leaves from his arms. The brothers stood alone in the clearing, staring at one another. The last of the apparitions curled away into the dark forest. Yof broke away. He pushed into the wilding thicket at the northeast boundary. Here, he declared, the King's Road. The morning cicadas did not relent. Wedit squeezed the thief's neck tighter in his right hand. The torchlight danced on the Felding wall, and it seemed the entire city slept within. 3, 4, mumbled Yof, nervous. Since most Ged-dwellers stayed within their walled cities, the thin, pale, and dark-eyed thief had never seen a newborn. They had caught him trying to scramble back up the wall to safety.
You would have gotten it back,
cried the old thief. He groaned in pain, smothered by Wedit's blunt fingers and pierced by his sharp glare. Even through the thick of night he saw its accusers, and to him they were as unformed shadows. 9, 10, Yof mumbled. When? Snarled Wedit. When? The thief grinned.
After I'd chatted out?
He dared to laugh. His many friends joined in. They all cackled with him. 15, 16, Yof whispered. Although crassly amused, the thief's friends were held at bay by Yof's drawn arrow. None of them were interested in being the first to die. They lounged along the top of the Felding wall, eyeing the glint of the arrowhead below, bobbing from target to target in the firelight. Wedit had no rejoinder for the crude remark, and in truth he was a little jealous of the thief's quick wit. So he could think of nothing better to do than squeeze the laughter from the old man's throat. The Ged-dweller's eyes bulged beyond their natural size. Wedit forced the thief to painfully swallow what little air he had left.
Leave him.
Shouted one of the thief's friends from atop the wall.
Let him go. He meant no harm.
The newborn son scowled and brought his axe alongside his captive's scraggy cheek. He pressed metal to flesh. Where is it? Wedit growled.
Come now, it's a big beast. You can feed some of us, surely,
whimpered the thief. My kill, my food, answered Wedit. He turned the axe and cut the man's cheek.
Come then, Cary.
Give the woodcutter his ranging meat.
Not worth your pretty face, is it? Eh?
Give it back, Cary. Skunk tastes better.
The ruffians laughed and jostled one another with crooked elbows. Woodcutter? Wedit whispered in quiet rage. He plunged his index finger into the old man's foul-smelling maw. He pushed around the yellow gums and the black teeth, searching. He drew out a small fleck of boar meat. Wedit lifted the thief higher and brought his axe back to strike. Wedit barely registered the worms writhing in the cracks of the mortar behind the head of the thief. They pushed out from the felding wall. Yof struggled to keep his wobbly arrow pointed at the men and women up on the wall. 19, 20. Yof finished counting. Wedit's temper cooled as he let go of the headless man. A handful of worms fell from the wall and crawled toward the thief's now unending smile. The newel-born jostled the axe in his hands, sneering. He could smell his brother's sudden sweat behind him, and then, wafting down from the felding wall, the pungent odor of his stolen boar. Wedit turned his humorless gaze up at the dead man's friends. They lowered the stolen meat down in a basket.
Next time on Part 2, The Volpa.
Azara laughed. She tilted her head at him. Then Wedit saw a vein twitch in Azara's neck. She grew angry.
Did you not take my elixir, the ambrosia of the Volpa, knowing you had no payment? Tell me, newel-born, do you break the law in service of your lord, believing the Volpa has no defense? Or is this transgression of my very life for some other reason?
She readied her needle.
And Worms Do Not Destroy, starring Steve Rudolph as Wedit, Yof, and the narrator, featuring Cary Ayers as Kaveh the Thief, AJ Beckles, Sarah Golding, and Owen McCuen as Ensemble. Written and produced by William J. Meyer. Thanks for listening.